Today we're live with Peidra James, who's joining us from Kingston, Jamaica, to talk about how she manages diabetes, transitioning from college to an internship. So Peidra's just joining us now, so I'm going to invite her to the broadcast. Okay, so Peidra, welcome to the broadcast. So Peidra, can you introduce yourself and maybe give us your story with diabetes, and tell us a little bit about how what you're doing now in terms of college and managing the transition from being at university and going to do an internship?
Okay. Well, my name is Peidra James, and I am a fourth year, final year university student at the Northern Caribbean University in Jamaica. So I'm a double major, so I'm studying both mass communication, TV productions, and business administration. So I've been diagnosed with diabetes in October 17, 2007, when I was 10 years old. And it was a big transition for me because I never really type 1 diabetes wasn't as common in the island, and it wasn't often that you had a support group or anyone who had that much knowledge about it. There were very few specialists in the island. And then there's so America and Canada has a lot of pedio endos, but in like the Caribbean there's only 2 in the entire Caribbean for that. So I never actually had that much specialists to really go to. And it was also the second cause of death in the island when I was diagnosed.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it was. So diabetes, we had like diabetes camps where I basically had support from those children and from other people who still, like the counselors that I still talk to today. And transitioning from high school, what I appreciate was that my homeroom teacher, she was also a type 1. So able to actually
That's
be
pretty
there for
cool.
me. Yeah, it was really nice. She was there to be there for me, and she supported me throughout most of high school. How I got into media was because my dad, he was someone who always made home videos. So growing up, he always had a camera. He had like a little studio that he always make home videos and he would edit them. And when I was growing up, I felt inspired. I thought it was a hobby. So I started, setting up things and started videoing. And I became known around school for just editing and just videoing. And then my teachers, they convinced me that that is really the field that I needed to go into. And I enjoyed it every single day that I've been in here so far.
That's great. I think that that's a really inspiring story to, share with other people who might be considering taking something that they consider to be a hobby and turning it into their career. So thank you for sharing that. So Peidra, can you tell me a little bit about how your diabetes management may have changed when you started university, and maybe tell us about the transition that you are currently undergoing, taking you from your final year at university into your internship, and what that means?
Basically, the transition into college is that I started working at a media house called NCU Media, and I was a producer there. And the people there are very, very considerate. So the hosts and the assistant producers or the P in my field, I basically told them beforehand what diabetes was and explained to them what type 1 diabetes was. And being in college, there were a lot of ups and downs, to be honest, especially on set. So there are times where you have some early morning shoots and they may be very long. So I've had a shoot from 7 o'clock in the morning and it goes straight up till 8. While on set, most times what I would do is that I prepare some food so that I know that I have something to snack on while I'm on set. So during the short breaks that we have. So I appreciate a director. Not all directors are like this, but this director in particular, he knows that I have to eat at a certain time or else my blood sugar will fall low. So what he does is that when he knows that it's closer to that time, he'll ensure that everybody takes a break so that it doesn't look out of place. So everybody will get a lunch break at that specific time while we're on set. And I appreciate people who I work with who are like that. There are other times where you're doing a live broadcast that you know that time is money, so you cannot necessarily break. There are times when my blood sugar would be falling, but I would feel it before. The thing is, being in the Caribbean, CGM machines and insulin pumps, they're not actually available as it is in America and Canada.
Oh,
So I
really?
would have to be, yeah, so I would have to be testing myself quite often. I do like more than 7 blood, the little glucose tests a day.
Wow.
So basically, when I know that it's closer to the time and I feel that it's falling, that is when I actually have a candy. If I don't have a candy on me, there's normally during the intermissions or if we're having a live broadcast, I know that there are like little breaks. So what would happen is that sometimes on set they have somebody to replace you. So if you have to run somewhere, they have a backup, especially for me, camera operator.
There's a lot of pressure with being a camera operator because you are expected to be present and manage the camera. So you were saying how you had a backup for that. Is that something that you felt comfortable doing while you're on set? Was that sort of a normal practice?
It doesn't happen all the time because there are times where I'm the director and the producer. So it depends on, because I'm still in university and there are other class members that are there. So what happened is that sometimes when we're doing a broadcast, there's always someone that's behind you. So anybody who is a camera operator, there's a next person that's behind that camera operator just in case anything goes wrong. So that is what happens down here in the Caribbean. So on set, it depends on what the film is about. If you're in studio, it's a bit different from being out in the field doing EFP, electronic field preparation management.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in the field, it's a bit different, where you might be doing like some action movies and so forth. So yeah.
Well, no matter where you are, you're always looking to, solve whatever diabetes is throwing in your way. So whether that means utilizing this backup system that's available or, getting to pick something else that works for you. It sounds like you really found something that works for you, Peidra, in that situation. I also, having worked in media, I can understand, the expectation that you go above and beyond in your job on a normal basis. Would you say that's something that you've created more solutions for yourself since you've been at university and kind of preparing to enter the job market and stuff like that?
In terms of having more solutions, like in the future, I do hope to get a CGM machine. I think that does help because, especially with some of them, they're able to alert you before you go low or tell you can get the message on your phone. So that seems more convenient. The other solutions that I feel that can happen is that while there are different, I don't know how it is in America or Canada on set, but normally before live broadcast and so forth, you're given different intermission breaks. So you're able, while on set, they have like refreshments and so forth.
How do you see yourself in your future career?
Being a director of photography. So
Okay.
It's someone who operates with the whole technicalities of lighting and camera.
Who are some DPs that you look up to in the industry?
Russell Carpenter. I really appreciate Russell Carpenter. He made Titanic. He helped with the cinematography for Titanic. And Raquel, I'm trying to remember her last name, but she did the cinematography for The Greatest Showman and Black Panther. And I love looking at how Black Panther was composed and all the shots and so forth. I really believe it deserves an award in the future for cinematography.
And I think it's really great to talk about role models that you have because, sometimes with people with diabetes, like we need to have like goals, I find, that help us, keep motivated and like keep us wanting to take care of ourselves. So I think that an important component of that is having role models, like you just mentioned. Do you think so?
So there are people in the media industry who have type 1 diabetes that I look up to, like Nick Jonas. I feel as if they can do it, that I can do it too.
Mm-hmm.
And with that was why I won an award. I won 3 awards this year in the film festival, the Lignum Vitae Film Festival in the Caribbean, and it was for best cinematography, best PSA, and best commercial.
So that you mentioned winning those awards in the postcard that you wrote for us. So I think, it's really important that you see yourself also as a role model for people with diabetes, um, because I think that people with diabetes really look up to you and, can see you also as a role model, Peidra, for, the work that you've already done and the work that you're going to do once you complete your internship and things like that. So can you tell me about some of the advice that you may have gotten from other people, either with diabetes or in the industry, leading into the internship that you're going to start?
Well, there was a few, like, I have a lot of friends who do have type 1. There's just a community. I feel as if we have a family together. And some of the advice that they given me is that you should never make, you're limitless. You have no limit. You're the only limit to your to limitations. And that made a lot of sense to me. That oftentimes we see diabetes as something that will limit you in the career, if you go low, how people look at you. And growing up, I wasn't as open as I am today about diabetes, but it was because I had so many friends who basically encouraged me and who call me on a daily basis. Like my friend Chippy Mo and Amos. I met them in Vancouver and they were the greatest friends that I've ever had. They've always talked to me, and even Gavin, they've always talked to me and they encouraged me. And even Gavin, he showed me, he did a marathon, several marathons across the entire Europe, and that motivated me to be an advocate for change. And I even started a diabetes support group, and it started this month, the first diabetes support group, and I was very proud of it because there were other kids that I could talk to and motivate them. And when I was younger, I had started an organization when I was younger called Unite for Diabetes. So that organization isn't as active as it is today,
Mm-hmm.
but it was something that I started a movement throughout Jamaica so that everyone could unite and know that you are worth a lot more. You're more than your diabetes.
Um, so, Pedra, can you tell me next how maybe some surprising ways that people have reacted once you tell them that you have diabetes?
Um, to be honest, I guess like the one of the surprising ones that I've gotten was that when people come up to you and they're like, "Oh, my grandma died from diabetes," or I was like, "That's not as encouraging." Or some other people, they react to a lot of ways. Some are surprised. Some The reason why when I was younger, why I never spoke about it before was because I never like people looking at me as I'm sick.
Pedro, can you tell me what advice you would give? You've talked about the advice that you've received from some of your role models in the diabetes community. Can you tell me what advice you would give to maybe students who are looking to go into film, if they're still in high school, or if they're nervous about, working on set or doing some other kind of job where they feel like they maybe don't belong because they have diabetes? Do you have any advice for them?
Well, the advice that I would give to anyone is that be yourself, and not only be yourself, realize that there will always be people that will support you and love you no matter where you go. even in the working world. And media isn't always about highs and lows. There are other things that literally I've always had this quote that it's not about the past, it's not about the future, it's about taking this moment that you're living now and making it count. So whenever you're in the media industry, just make every moment that you basically, whether you take up a camera, whether you're on mic or radio, whatever you're doing, journalism, anything, just ensure that you make that moment that you're living in count to the fullest.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really good advice. Can you tell me about maybe any of the other steps that you're taking to prepare for your internship? Have you sent out your applications already? Do you plan on telling people that you have diabetes before you start, or when you get there, or what's your plan of action?
Well, what I believe is that I'm trying to, what we do in our department is that you go through like career services and you send in your resume and they review it before you send it out to any of the media houses that you would want to go. So I guess for my internship, what I plan to do is that I'll send in my applications and my resume, and then eventually, when I reach they like medical history is not always an obligation on the forms. So I believe that if I wasn't really asked about my medical history, that I would tell them once I'm actually there. So what happens is that I believe that your work should and your experience and everything in school should really define whether you get a job, and not necessarily if you have an illness or a condition, um, basically.
I agree that it's a really personal thing to disclose whether you have diabetes or not, and if you want to do that at all. But I was wondering if you can tell us maybe, are there any particular types of internships that you yourself are interested in getting when the process is over?
Well, I am hoping to get an internship in Canada. I really love the film industry, and I've always said that I want to do cinematography. So I hope it gets in Canada that's related around film. So I that's one of my hopes, and if not, there's an internship that I could do in Jamaica with one of the largest productions house that's called Phase Three. So it's between those two.
Those sound like really good choices. I
Yeah.
think that'll be great, and I'm sure as a platinum student, you'll have your choice of places that you want to go. Do you want to tell our audience what that means to be a platinum student?
Yeah, so a platinum honorary student is someone who it has the top, it's a final year student who has one of the top grades or is one of the top media students within the Department of Mass Communication at NCU. So for a platinum honorary, you might be graduating with honors. Some people have 4.0 GPAs. It just means that you have a high GPA and you'll be graduating at the top of the class in your final year.
So, Peidra, my last question for you is, can you, or I guess maybe my last question, can you tell me about how your diabetes management has evolved or changed since you started, that first job that you did at the production house, and since you've gone through university? Is there anything that you do differently or that you didn't think of before going through those transitions?
Well, I changed my and started university, so I had to learn how to carb count. Yeah, so I realized that stress and sleep, lack of sleep causes my blood sugar to drop tremendously. For some people, stress might cause it to go up, but for me, it just causes my blood sugar to go down really, really low.
Wow. It definitely makes my blood sugar go up. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, Peidra, what would you say is the biggest challenge, if you had to pick one, that you've overcome since starting university and sort of choosing your career and moving forward with that?
There is one challenge that I'm still trying to overcome. I realize that I have hypoglycemic unawareness. So in my sleep, I can't sense when my blood sugar goes down, and that kind of developed in university. Well, I guess other than the carb counting and learning what stress does to me and lack of sleep, I believe that I learned to support other people who are in, because I've met people in my industry that also have diabetes, and so like learning from them, and like we support each other. So if we know that somebody might be
Yeah.
going low, you have a candy and you could give it to them, or we can just sit down and talk about it. And I think overcoming challenges with somebody else or with like support is something that's like the greatest comfort that there is in life. So
Knowing
it's
you're
like,
not alone.
yeah, knowing that you're not alone, that you have
Mm.
someone there to support you.
You're right. It's just great to know you're not alone, and to have that support while you're going through any kind of transition is really important. Great.
Yeah.
Well, Peidra, thank you for joining us for this interview. As I mentioned, we really are super excited that you were able to share your story with us, both in your global postcard and in this interview. And so we'll be posting it when we post it on Facebook and on YouTube. People will be able to leave comments. So if anybody has any questions for Peidra, please feel free to leave them below. And we'd love to hear more, Peidra, as you continue to make such great achievements in your field, and you continue to do some impressive work. So thank you again.
And thanks for having me.